In the past few years, the salmon population has severely decreased. Overfishing is the main reason to blame for this event. The graph below shows the declining population of Chinook salmon, which is the largest breed of salmon in the Pacific Ocean. As you can see, in 1984, the population was close to 1.2 million, and by 2010, it was cut in half. In order to restore the salmon population, salmon farms have been created. However, these farms have inadequate conditions that can cause harm to the fish and the surrounding environment. Salmon protection agencies have also been created to help restore the population. In this presentation, we will also explain how to fix this problem. One big question that might be asked is why the salmon population is being overfished. The answer is fairly simple. There is an extremely large market for them. In fact, salmon consumption has tripled since 1980. Because salmon is an oily fish, it has a high nutritious value. It contains vitamins A and D, as well as omega-3 fatty acids, which help to lower the risk of heart disease and protect the health of blood cells. As stated before, the salmon populations are the best and most common form of salmon restoration. However, there are a few other methods. Pesticides containing nonylphenols have stopped being sprayed in eastern United States forests. These chemicals affect the salmon's endocrine system and do not allow them to reproduce. Also, small dams have been removed to help reopen salmon spawning areas. Salmon farming is an industrial production of salmon from egg to market in a net cage pond or contained system. Most salmon farms are located in the ocean. They succeed in restoring the salmon population, but they also have multiple downsides. One of which is that salmon farms are heavily populated. Around 1 million fish are put into an area the size of 2 football fields. Some companies also use growth hormones to speed up salmon development. Furthermore, diseases are common in the farms and can cause serious damage to the fish. This can easily be seen in the picture to the right. The meat of the infected salmon is orange instead of pink.
Alright, so now we're going to talk about salmon farms on a corporational level. Marine Harvest is the #1 producer of salmon worldwide, and interestingly enough, is headed in Norway. They practice safe and effective salmon farming, is a member of the Global Salmon Initiative, GSI, and the majority of their farms are approved by the Aquaculture Stewardship Council, or ASC. I will go into detail on what the ASC and GSI are later on. The 3 main goals set by Marine Harvest CEO is to reduce environmental impact, increase social contribution, and maintain economic growth. The British Columbia Salmon Farmers Association, or BCSFA, is essentially a collection of British Columbia salmon farmers that do this. And all of its members are part of the GSI, and all of its members have been approved, committed, or on the process of reaching standards set by the ASC. It's also important to note that the BCSFA and Marine Harvest are committed to ASC policies completely by 2020. Now, when it comes to salmon farm practices on a corporational level, they're pretty much the same, and the only real differences in the business from business to business is that when it comes to food, like feeding the salmon, when it comes to harvesting the salmon, and when it comes to sea lice countermeasures. Now, both the BCSFA and Marine Harvest do not use hormones at all, and when they counter sea lice, which is a naturally occurring parasite of sorts that will attach itself onto the salmon and make it unhealthy to eat, so you kind of need to counter this. The Marine Harvest and BCSFA, they have regular veterinary checks, and they integrate medicine into the salmon population through the introduction of it into their food or into the water that they live in. However, Marine Harvest has a few different ways to go about this, and through their good management and system design, they have a much lower sea lice occurrence rate than other businesses. And additionally, they have an organic way of going about the countering of sea lice. And what they will do is they'll introduce a fish called wrasse, or however you pronounce that, and it will essentially clear up the sea lice by just naturally fighting it. They will naturally get rid of the sea lice. And these fish are a very organic alternative to using medicine, and is a very revolutionary way of dealing with sea lice, and can be used quite more often in the future. Now, when it comes to sustainability in salmon corporations, it's relatively new, and it hasn't been developed as much as it probably should have been, as the ASC was founded in 2010 and the GSI in 2013, so it's still a rather new thing. But regardless, the Global Salmon Initiative is all about the cooperation and transparency used in methods that the salmon corporations and businesses use that will promote better sustainable practices overall. Now, again, to put this into perspective, 70% of corporations and businesses that deal with the production of salmon are members of the GSI. So, while that number is kind of up there, it's not as high as it probably should be, and so more development needs to be put into place and more businesses need to join the GSI to promote better sustainable practices. And the Aquaculture Stewardship Council, ASC, it manages global standards for responsible aquaculture, and it's not limited to salmon, but in this case, we are going to use it as it's limited to salmon. But essentially what the ASC does is once it approves a farm, that farm will then have the ability to say, hey, we have responsible, sustainable, and efficient, productive aquaculture, whatever they want to say. And they will be able to put an ASC label on their product that says, we have these responsible aquaculture practices, so you should buy our product. So the ASC is essentially a good labeling tool that can help with marketing, and will hopefully get to the point where it will encourage all businesses that have to do with aquaculture to strive for that ASC standard. Put this into perspective again, 60 salmon farms were approved by the ASC in 2013, and 5% of salmon farms in 2013 were approved. So 95% of salmon farms in 2013 were not approved by the ASC. So it just goes to show you how far off some of these businesses and corporations are when in aligning with the responsible aquaculture practices that the ASC strives to uphold. Now, the BC SFA, British Columbia Salmon Farm Association, received the first Global Aquaculture Alliance's Best Aquaculture Practices Standard, which just shows that they strived to get these ASC policies. And while not 100% ASC approved, they are working on getting that approval quite well as opposed to other businesses. Marine Harvest is also up there, but it's not as significant as the BC SFA. Marine Harvest, to put it in perspective, just how far behind sustainability is in this society of salmon corporations, is 3 of their 14 farms in Ireland of Marine Harvest have been certified by the ASC. That means there are 11 farms that are lacking the approval of ASC, and Marine Harvest is is the best business in the salmon industry. So it just goes to show you just how much the salmon farm industry is lacking when it comes to sustainability. And that's why sustainability needs to be pushed more. And that's why the issue needs to be addressed and needs to get out there. And that is why we are talking about this.
There are many dangerous and toxic chemicals and compounds used in salmon farms that are used to grow and improve the salmon, but they have negative effects on the fish and the environment. Polychlorinated biphenyls, PCBs, and dioxin. PCBs are harmful organic chlorine compounds that are consumed by fish in their food or absorbed by them in through the water. Dioxin is a dangerous pollutant made of chlorinated hydrocarbons that can cause cancer and birth defects in the fish. Some examples of dangerous compounds are dichlorvos C4H7Cl2O4P. This is an insecticide known for causing cancer in threatening aquatic environments, and it is known to kill non-target animals. The next is malachite green C23H25ClN2. This is used to treat fungal and parasitic infections, and it can cause cancer. The next is invermectin C48H74O14. This is an anti-parasite known to kill non-target marine species in the environment. Next is cypermethrin C22H19Cl2NO3, which is a sea lice treatment that can kill all insects within 12 kilometers of a river. Last is teflubenzuron C14H6Cl2F4N2O2. This is a treatment for Lepiophthirus salmonis, a type of sea lice. It threatens non-target species and is also not biodegradable in seawater, which means that it can continue to release into the sea years following the original release and continue to harm the environment.
The effect on humans of growth hormones used in farm-raised salmon have yet to show any signs of any effects due to a lack of scientific evidence. The FDA is currently using only a few small studies to evaluate these effects, and it's done by a company known as AquaBounty, who is using the growth hormones themselves. Current sustainability methods include protecting areas with high salmon activity, such as healthy rivers, because rebuilding rivers that are already damaged and unfit for salmon becomes expensive, so it's much more important to go ahead and protect the ones that are healthy. Second point is dumping iron into the oceans. Several scientific studies have proven that doing this works basically as fertilizer for soil, and that salmon productivity and efficiency increases. A solution to it would be that the government allows certain salmon farm companies to be able to fish for salmon, but those not authorized by the government cannot. Those caught fishing for salmon that are not accepted by the government will be fined. For example, the Aquaculture Stewardship Council, ASC, plays a big part in maintaining reliable and safe aquaculture practices. More membership into the ASC, roughly 5% of farms were approved in 2013.
If current salmon restoration projects continue, then the population should increase in the future. Also, if our solution to increase the salmon population is set into place, then we should further see the populations grow. The process may or may not take multiple years, but the end result will be the same. The salmon populations will finally be restored.